Hello, Built by Us listeners. Before we begin, we like to preface all of our episodes by sharing that our conversations take place with individuals of different lived experiences and at varying stages in their journey of learning and unlearning. Because of this, our conversations can be sensitive and triggering. Here at Built by Us, we want to remind listeners that we will always strive to create brave spaces where productive dialogue is present, all voices are heard and acknowledged, and learning can take place for each guest, listener, and host. Conversations and thoughts from our episodes are not officially representative of the views of Democracy North Carolina. We hope that you enjoy the episode.
Joining me now is co-founder and lead organizer behind Democracy Out Loud, Karen Ziegler. Democracy Out Loud was one of the leading groups behind the efforts in the fight against gerrymandering in North Carolina and responsible for the attempt to disrupt the vote on October 20th.
Welcome. You're listening to
Built by Us.
Built by Us.
Built by Us. Built by Us.
Karen, thanks for joining me. Karen, let's start from the beginning. When you heard about these redrawn maps and they first landed on Democracy Out Loud's radar, what was that moment like for you? Walk me back to that.
Honestly, I don't remember that exact moment, but I think it's much like hundreds of other moments where I've heard about unconscionable things that the Republican leadership has proposed or passed in the General Assembly. Anti-environment, anti-immigrant, anti-DEI, criminalizing homelessness, criminalizing protest, legislative power grabs, pro-gun legislation, book banning, anti-trans laws, trying to eliminate trans people from public life, destroying free and fair elections. I mean, this is just not even an exhaustive list of the horrible things that the Republican leadership in the General Assembly has done in the past few years. So, so hearing about the maps was just like hearing about all those other things. It was like this question, how far will they go? Is there any bottom? And there doesn't seem to be. They will do anything to stay in power. They will do anything to support President Trump and his agenda.
Yeah. What do you think this says about when you start to look at the democratic process in terms of just a fair democracy that represents all people and a place where everybody's voice can be heard?
I think it says that we have to fight very hard. As we all know who have studied history, we've never had a free and fair democracy, but we've struggled to get a little closer to it. And in recent years, the General Assembly, really for the last 15 years, and the Republican Congress have been backpedaling, as not to mention the Supreme Court. We're moving very quickly back, rolling back the things that people have died and fought for so hard, for equal rights, for free and fair elections. And we have to push back because they are pushing very hard so that we lose all of that.
Your group and everybody participating at Democracy Out Loud in your organization, in some of your civic demonstrations, we were talking about it earlier. You guys kept showing up to the GA into these different rooms, and a total of 4 times being thrown out. How did that make you guys feel, being thrown out multiple times?
Well, we've been getting thrown out of there for a long time. People remember Moral Mondays, led by Reverend William Barber, where hundreds and hundreds of people were arrested week after week. And we keep getting thrown out over years. We keep showing up in the gallery and just trying to point out the lies, the gaslighting, the unconstitutional things that the Republican majority has been doing ever since Tom Tillis was the speaker, was the leader of the North Carolina House, beginning, I think, in 2011.
Yeah. I want to read back to you something powerful that you said when you testified before the legislature. If you pass this, your legacy will be shredding the Constitution, destroying democracy. That was such a strong statement, and I know you meant every word. Can you break down for people listening or someone who may watch, what does gerrymandering do to the democratic process when politicians get to choose their voters instead of voters choosing their representatives? What is really at stake, especially for people who are in CD1?
So, CD1, that congressional district, contains every Black majority county in North Carolina. It's gobsmacking to me that these Republicans got up on the floor and said, "Oh, racial data was not used." Are you kidding me? This is the black belt of North Carolina, and you have eliminated, or you're trying to eliminate, we're all going to fight back very hard, but you're trying to eliminate their representation, the representation that historically from that black belt of North Carolina has been leading civil rights for many, many years. Um, it's unconscionable and so vicious that they are picking them off. So if people want to see what gerrymandering does, the easiest way to see it is that North Carolina votes half Republican, half Democrat. Our makeup is a third Republican, a third independent, a third Democrat, but we vote 50-50. We saw that in the last election. We voted majority so that we elected a Democratic governor, a Democratic attorney general, a Democratic education secretary. So we vote equally. So we should have representation in the United States Congress that is 7 Republicans and 7 Democrats. That would be free and fair elections. That would be maps drawn by a nonpartisan commission that's trying to give everybody the vote. And Republicans have been chipping away at democracy, which is every person gets a vote. All votes are counted, and we have a rigged system anyway because the Electoral College. That's a tremendous rigging for certain people. But in North Carolina, it's always been so much worse. It got a little better during Reconstruction after the Civil War, and then the Republicans, well, they were called Democrats now, but the same people just destroyed the fair representation in North Carolina. So right now we have 2 black representatives in the U.S. Congress, and they have now tried very hard, and they might be successful if we don't fight back very hard, eliminating one, the only black male that is representing us in the United States Congress.
7-7 sounds great, Karen. I really wish we could have a fair and equal democracy, and more importantly, fair representation. Because that is when we can really come together and find really amicable solutions to problems that are affecting not just, again, one side of North Carolina or another side, but North Carolina as a whole, and looking um, at a place where, hey, we could do this together versus
That's exactly right.
versus dividing us. I can't help but to admire, Karen. You have this spark in you, this fire and this passion to really defend and fight for democracy, voting rights, and a fair, equal democracy. Is really clear to you too that this isn't just political, but it's personal. Why are defending these rights not just for yourself, but for people you've never met so important to you?
It's so clear to me that if you hurt someone else, you're hurting yourself. It's so clear to me that we're all connected. And I think that um, when you have empathy, when you have compassion, when you have a moral a moral center, you have to fight back when other people are getting hurt because we are all each other's brothers and sisters, whether we want to see ourselves that way or not. We are all connected.
We are all connected. Humans, neighbors,
Yes.
um, we're all here really on the same planet, living the same. We're all really living the same lives too. Um, and just because of how someone looks or how someone um is in a socioeconomic status as they define it across America, it shouldn't determine what rights you have and what opportunities you have and your place within the society, you know? Um
Yes.
so pivoting a bit to in 2017, you founded Democracy Out Loud. I talked to Mike a little bit about this, but what was the defining moment, and what happened that made you say enough is enough? I need to do something, or I want to do something.
Well, I had retired from my job. It's hard to find time to do this work if you're working. But once I was retired, I knew that I wanted to return to being a full-time activist, which I used to be. And And so Move On was asking for protests outside senators' offices, protesting Trump's cabinet appointments in 2017, January 2017. And Nancy Jacobs and I didn't know each other and had never met, but both of us realized afterwards we kept checking that, where is the one going to show up for Raleigh? And then it never did. So we both signed up, didn't know each other. And that week was so powerful protesting outside of Tillis's office. I think we were protesting Betsy DeVos's appointment, that we just kept showing up every single week. And we were outside the office of Senator Tillis in Federal Building of Raleigh 3.5 years, rain and shine, cold and hot, marching around, chanting, singing, and learning from each other about what was happening in the White House and how these policies were affecting people. And every week we had a different topic. We learned what other groups were working on these topics. We learned so much. And the most important thing was that we would arrive incredibly depressed by whatever had happened, about DACA, about immigrants, about all of his policies just were horrible. And so we always felt better at the end because we had shared that time of releasing, metabolizing some of that frustration. And what happened at the end was we were a community. We are a community. We trust each other. We know each other, and we're all willing to fight for what we know is right.
It's so critical. Um, Standing with your values and who you are as a person, and also just being able to stand up and speaking your truth. So
Okay.
again, I really applaud you for that, Karen, and standing by that. I am curious now, not about the profession you picked in between organizing, but your your days of being a full time activist before your profession. Um, how did you get into being a full time activist? And like, if I may ask, what were some of these movements or moments you witnessed participating or growing up, whether it's in your community or in the news? Like, what were some of the driving things or movements you were participating or really inspired you?
So when I was a kid, I used to read the Bible a lot. The Sermon on the Mount started when I was very, very young. And I just felt the truth of what Jesus was saying in the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor. Good luck to the rest of you, because the last will be first and the first last. Feed the hungry, shelter people who are homeless, welcome the stranger. And then I went to seminary, and the entire Bible is about economic justice, is about the opposite of what MAGA is doing, what Republicans are now doing to our country. That was really clear to me. So, and when I was 19, shock of my life, I fell in love with a woman, realized that I was gay, realized that I had always been lied to about gender, about sexuality. The woman I fell in love with was Black, so I realized, I've been lied to all my life about race. I really began to read James Baldwin and Malcolm X, and I started to see how messed up the dominant culture is, especially the dominant white dominant culture that's trying so hard to come back from being pushed back a little bit by people's understanding. So anyway, I became the pastor of an LGBTQ church in Greenwich Village, Metropolitan Community Church. And I began to understand how deeply my people, LGBTQ people, have suffered because of the church, because of other organized religion. And a year after I became pastor of that church at age 24, AIDS came and started killing my community and sickening the people all around me. And then I realized what happens when there's a public health crisis and the federal, state, and local governments don't want to do anything because they just as soon have gay people die, gay men die. And so we, To me, it's genocide when that happens because we just were watching people die and none of our government officials on any level, Reagan was president then, there was a big anti-gay thing going on with Anita Bryant and so forth. And I was watching people that I loved, people in my community, um, you know, get shunned. Churches wouldn't bury them, funeral homes wouldn't bury them, nurses wouldn't bring their food trays into the room, doctors wouldn't take care of them. Um, it 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 was a very radicalizing experience. And of course, what I also experienced was how my community rose to that occasion. We took care of each other. Um, we started organizations that took care of people with AIDS. And then I was part of ACT UP, which was one of the most exciting activist organizations, I think, in my lifetime. Which just people in ACT UP, many of them were dying. And they were like, okay, maybe I'm dying, but I'm going to make it better for the next people.
That's such a selfless perspective too to think about, and there's a lot of empathy in there, and thinking about the next person. Sometimes I think we've lost a sense of that, whether it's immediate or generations later, the people around you. Um, if you could pin it down to one person, who taught you that one person could make a difference?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we just have to look around. I mean, there's so many people that teach us that. I will say that right now, the the person that I look to the most often really is Harriet Tubman because she was a slave, but she realized that she was free inside and she was determined to be free. And then she kept going back. You know, and I think there are so many people throughout history and right now who keep showing us the courage that it takes to keep showing up and the cost of freedom, really. Um, we just have to read history to see how much one person can do. And yeah, we just we we just have to. Once we see the truth, once we really see the truth about how we're all being gaslighted and lied to about so many things, when we wake up, I think we have to keep speaking the truth as loudly as we can.
Yes, we do. Um, when it comes to speaking our truth, that goes so well with the First Amendment. And I think one thing Democracy Out Loud and so many other groups across North Carolina do is civic unrest and peaceful protests. Why is it so critical? And then there's more than one way besides joining a big group that people can speak their truth, right? Why is it so critical that everyday people show up and speak and make their voices heard, whether it's at their local town hall meeting, at the NCGA, or in any of these other rooms, or even if it's trying to get an appointment with someone in their local or statewide legislature? Why is that so important, Karen?
I think we do it for our own health, you know? So there's a huge shift going on this planet, right? There's dictatorships, planetary destruction, all of that. And it's affecting all of us. I think we all feel the heaviness of that, the heaviness of so many of our neighbors suffering, even if we're not suffering ourselves. And so whenever we take an action of any kind, um, we feel a little better. When we take an action with other people, we feel even better than that, you know? Because I think what we're doing is we're metabolizing the distress that we all feel about being part of a sick society that is so unbalanced, out of connection with nature, um, with ourselves, with our own bodies. And when we take action, we feel better. And the more action we take, the better we feel. And the more we take action with other people, then we feel connected to them. And if we are courageous enough to establish connections with people who are different from us, maybe very poor people, maybe people who have just a completely different experience, then it expands our world. We're doing it for ourselves. Like if we do it just out of the charity model, like, oh, I have so much and you're so poor, so I'll help you. That doesn't work. That's depleting. But once we start to really be in solidarity with other people, understand we're no different from anybody else, then we start being energized by our actions.
That's so moving what you said. I always tell my little sister specifically, you can't serve from an empty ship or like a broken vessel.
Right.
You have to be doing those things from a place again that is energized.
Because we're all, we're trying to get free here, and you can't get free from a place of depletion.
For someone who is in like another community, maybe they're listening in from like out of state, who's thinking about taking that action in their community or maybe facing their own battle, what would you tell them when trying to start a grassroots organization or some sort of community movement, or trying to, or even they're thinking about maybe just speaking the truth on their own and presenting themselves without a org or anyone backing them and just saying, hey, could we change this in my community? What would you tell them?
Well, I think it's important to have good news sources. I read Heather Cox Richardson every day. I try not to depend too much on the legacy media or social media, and then connect with other people is the most important thing, and then just take an action. Like today, I called both my senators and my representative. It helped me because I got out some of my frustration about what's going on, and it makes a difference. If enough of us called our senators and representatives every single day, things would shift. We saw on Tuesday in the election, things have really shifted because of that election. I would say the most important thing right now in the next year is going to be the next election. We have got to have massive turnout for the next election. So if you're thinking, well, what can I do? Well, join an organization that is working to get out the vote. Um, and look around. There are organizations everywhere. Poor People's Campaign, Repairs of the Breach. Reverend Barber is a really important one, and he's doing really powerful work here in North Carolina, and throughout the country. Repairs of the Breach. Also, Indivisible. We're an Indivisible chapter. I really appreciate what Indivisible is doing all over the country. It's important to show up for these big protests. It's fun. It's important to make the phone calls. It's important to talk to other people. If you can, and I have trouble with this, talk to strangers. Like, how are you feeling about what's happening in the country? It's important to listen to each other. Uh, uh, I trust people that if we all spend enough time, I'm a meditator, just spend enough time with yourself. What is it that I am called to do? We're all going to be called to do different things, but we all have to do something. We all have to step up. If you have the slightest sense, this is not okay, this is wrong, we can do better than this. We can stop destroying the planet. We can stop all of this suffering. People should not be hungry in the richest country in the world. I could just go on and on. People should not be homeless. That's nuts that people are homeless and other people have 12 houses or even two. So to just keep thinking, like, what doesn't make sense? What doesn't make sense? And what does make sense? What feels good to me? It's not about being comfortable. It's not about being happy. It's about being free. And none of us are free until all of us are free.
I echo that, Karen. None of us are free until all of us are free. Um, when you're maybe talking to someone, you mentioned earlier, talking to a stranger, I found even just learning about other people's lives and the things that they have been through, and then when you go on and do your own education and you start to read, you can actually see how a lot of legislature affects people in who have different
Yes.
lifestyles. And I think that's like it is really, I don't want people to be extractive, but what I want you to reflect on is their lived experience, and
Right.
through other lived experiences, that you can see in your life how legislature affects you, and then sometimes you can't see it because it will never affect you in your sphere. But when you actually take the time to educate yourself on how other people are living in different parts of North Carolina in your community, you can actually start to have some sort of empathy and start to understand, like, wow, that really that affects me, that also affects my neighbor. I really want to take a stand against this.
Yeah, and for example, the so-called big beautiful bill that was passed earlier this year, it hurts everybody, maybe except very, very, very wealthy people. That bill, and the effect of it over years' time, it hurts everybody, and people don't understand that. I mean, you take healthcare away from people, you close hospitals. Uh, it really shocks me that, that more people don't see this, but I think a lot of our news is not serving us, and we have to keep talking to each other to get the truth and to spread the truth about what these laws are doing, and how there's a very few billionaires extracting resources and money from the rest of us, especially very poor people. It's so expensive to be
It
poor.
is very expensive. Um, when you also again start to look at some of the barriers that keep people out of the fight, what do you think are some of the biggest obstacles that keep people out of it? Is it fear? Is it you know the fear? Is it? I mean, and there's even some relative fears to today of like of participating in protests, but then being seen in media. How can some people overcome some of these fears or some of these obstacles that may be in the way of them participating in the civic process?
Um, I think it's important to understand that Donald Trump is trying to make us all afraid. Um, it he's trying to overwhelm us and make us give up. But the thing is, I don't believe there's anything to be afraid of. I believe that our protection comes in our numbers. Um, there are more and more people where ICE is really hitting. There are more and more people showing up to fight ICE. There are more and more people getting involved in the democratic process. That we saw that on Tuesday. There are more and more people showing up every time we have one of those massed protests like No Kings. Um, what are we afraid of? Are we afraid of dying? I mean, we're all going to die, right? What are we going to what am I willing to die for? I'm willing to die for freedom. I'm willing to die for my country, standing up and saying, I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the rule of law. Why are we on this planet? We're here to help. If we're just digging in and letting ourselves become comfortable and pushing away the things that we're afraid of, this is not the purpose of human life. This is not why we were born. We're here to do some work. we're here to get we're here to get dirty and get busy and work so that uh, so that so that we learn, so that we grow, so that our hearts grow and our minds grow. Um, and we're in a time when we're very tempted to like contract. Um, the billionaires would love us to do that and just get scared and run away. But it's not the truth of what's happening. The truth of what's happening is that billions of people all over the world are waking up to the fact that this is a deeply out of balanced culture that we have to change. We have to shift the balance. We have to connect to the land. We have to connect to these ancestors who showed us how to fight injustice.
You're right. Um, we have to think about the future, and we have to think about and I think you pointed out something there is there's truly nothing to be afraid of.
Right.
Um,
It's true.
there's truly nothing for us to be afraid of. Because I also think too, if we look at history, a lot of these things have also been done before. Um,
Yes.
and that also means some of these things I don't they can be reversed and we can move forward. But have to stand together in solidarity and fight. When you think about that fight for the future and you think about these upcoming years and everything that is going on, what keeps you in this fight, Karen?
Oh, everything. I mean, the beauty of the planet, the miracle of life. Um, and fossil fuel companies are just destroying the planet. Billionaires are destroying the planet. Billionaires are crushing human beings, children. There are so many things that make me wake up and say, what can I do today? And I think we're at such a place where many, many people are just struggling to get through the day. And we have a lot of people who like me have resources, have time. And if we do have resources and have time, we got to wake up every day and say, what can I do to push back against this coup, this takeover of our government by people who do not mean us well, people who are ignorant and scared of losing power. What can we do to push back against those people? You know, power concedes nothing without a demand, and freedom is a constant struggle that our ancestors have been involved in. We have to struggle. We have to fight back because our life is not worth anything if we're just trying to get comfortable. We're not here to be comfortable.
Yep, I think someone once told me, growth happens in the uncomfort.
Yes, it's the only way growth happens. No, that's so right. And healing, we're trying to heal the planet. We're trying to heal humanity of our indifference, of our, cruelty. How does healing happen? It's not easy and it's not pretty, and it's about pushing our boundaries and opening, cracking open um our hearts, letting our hearts break. We're so afraid of looking at the homeless person, uh, at the person who's suffering in Gaza or Darfur or any place. We're so afraid of really opening to what that really means. We have to let our hearts break because then we can begin to take action because we're not protecting ourselves so much.
Karen, if someone was listening right now and they wanted to get involved in Democracy Out Loud to work, what would be their step one? How would you like them to go about that? I know you have an amazing newsletter that I subscribed to yet last night. What are some other ways that they could reach out to Democracy Out Loud and to really get involved in your work?
So that's the first step is just go to our website, Democracy Out Loud, and then you can subscribe to our newsletter. And then if you want to and send an email to us a little bit about yourself, you can come to our Tuesday Zoom meeting. We're now on Zoom. And I also lead a guided meditation every Thursday that anyone is invited to because I feel studying the abolitionists, and we're in an abolitionist time now. That's how we get to freedom. The abolitionists were all deeply spiritual. They were really connected to the unseen world, to the land. So I lead this meditation every Thursday so we can get grounded enough so that we have this courage and this strength to fight.
That's amazing, Karen. I will definitely at least one Thursday when as you mentioned earlier, some of this work it can be a lot. Sometimes it can feel overwhelming. So one
Yeah.
Thursday, I will definitely have to join you in this guided meditation because I know sometimes I need that.
Yeah, that would be lovely. My meditation teacher, I sort of follow 2 people, Reverend Barber and my meditation teacher, Lama Rod Owens, who's a Black queer Tibetan Lama, who used to be really connected to the Catholic Worker Party and the Black Panthers, and now he's teaching meditation and he understands activists. You may find this some of us find this through our charismatic Catholic church or our Jewish Voice for Peace, or having a connection to some kind of spiritual practice can really help us right now, really help us form community too.
Definitely, definitely. Is definitely needed. And finally, Karen, and I always like our listeners and people who partake in our media to feel grounded on their way out. If you could, for someone who's listening who may or may not feel really hopeful right now, what gives you hope for the future and for the fight that is still continuing?
I feel like what we read in the news and even what we see around us is not all that's going on. There is a lot going on, and it's not all visible. But I saw some of it on Tuesday get more visible. I know that there are so many people out there and really all over the world who love this planet, love life, love human beings, and want a free and fair elections. don't want a dictatorship, want justice, want freedom. I think there are so many of us, and there's just a few people trying to hold us down, a few people scared of us rising up. Well, we're going to rise up no matter what. I have complete faith in that. I have complete faith that we are in an unstoppable movement. And, you can lead, follow, join, or get out of the way because it is getting stronger every day. And we are watching this patriarchy, this white supremacy, this homophobia, this plant destroying fossil fuel. We're watching all of that break apart, and it's uncomfortable. It's like the house we've been living in all our lives is falling down over our heads. Well, it needs to fall down. A country built on genocide and slavery, it needs to kind of get broken apart and die. But what is coming in its place is powerful and tangible and incredibly beautiful. These younger generations, that are the way that they're seeing gender and understanding that we all have to get along and we all have to help each other. You know, I'm very hopeful for the future. And even though it looks bad some days, I understand that. These guys are going down, honey. They're going down.
The truth will always, as cliche as sound, the truth will always set itself free, I feel. And as you
Right?
said,
The truth will be revealed.
the truth will always be revealed. And I think the other thing too, Karen, you pointed out is it's not just because I have to take the step back sometimes and look around and say it's not just the news. It's not just everything around us isn't just the news. There are people um who are still making a way in life and still finding success and still finding happiness, and we're not defined by all those things that we're seeing, but by the truth I think we're living. So I really appreciate you
Right.
coming on today, Karen. And yeah, hopefully we look forward to hearing from you again. And thank you for all the amazing work that Democracy Out Loud is doing. Again, if anybody listening or watching wants to um, partake in any of their work or get involved in any of their work, you can go to Democracy Out Loud. Is it .org or .com, Karen?
Yeah, we're just a community of people. We're not an organization. We don't take money at all. Yeah, please do get the newsletter, and I'll tell you why, because I think there's gonna be a moment in the next few years where we all have to be at the same place at the same time. And we've been building this mailing list for 10 years. So,
Yep. So definitely get involved. Sign up for the email list. As soon as you get on the website, you can click on get involved and put in your email information. And yep. Thank you so much, Karen, for joining us. It was so amazing having you on.
it's such a joy to meet you. Thank you so much. Yeah.